In the sleepy town of Willow Creek, just outside Atlanta, Georgia, lived Mrs. Josephine Howard, a 78-year-old black widow whose quiet grace seemed to soften the relentless southern heat. Josephine had spent decades in the modest brick house she shared with her late husband, Julius, a proud Army National Guard sergeant and construction worker who built their home brick by brick. Their backyard held a sparkling in-ground pool, a symbol of their hard-earned life together. For Josephine, the pool was more than a place to cool off. It was a sanctuary. She'd often sit with her feet in the water, reading her worn Bible, praying, or watching clouds drift on the pool's shimmering surface. But the neighborhood around her was changing. Wealthier newcomers arrived, renovating homes and bringing an air of entitlement that clashed with the old community simplicity. One blazing Saturday afternoon, Josephine met the new neighbor, a sharply dressed woman with blonde hair, flanked by two similarly styled friends. The woman's sneer was clear the moment she saw Josephine's pool. "Seriously? A pool in this house? This neighborhood's going downhill," she said, her friends laughing cruelly. Josephine froze, but said nothing. It was only the beginning that, in the following days, Josephine felt the change in the air, whispers, cold stares, and then a note slipped under her iron gate. "A pool like that doesn't suit people like you. Sell the house and move somewhere more appropriate." She tucked it away, refusing to respond but feeling the sting. Later, while she relaxed by the pool, she overheard a cruel voice from the other side of the fence. "Still using that thing at her age? She should be wearing a burqa." Laughter followed. Josephine turned and went inside, dignity intact but heart aching. Then came the invasion. Returning from the farmer's market, Josephine found a new neighbor and her friends splashing loudly in her pool, drinks in hand, music blasting. "What do you think you're doing?" Josephine asked, voice trembling. The neighbor shrugged. "You hardly use it. We're just enjoying what you waste. This is my property. Get out now." "Oh, don't be so dramatic. Sharing is Christian, isn't it?" Josephine called the police after they left, but officers said without direct confrontation, there was little to do. That night, clutching a photo of Julius, Josephine wept, not just for the pool, but for the violation of her home and spirit. Days later, another note appeared. "An old black woman with a pool is an eyesore. Sell before we start a collection." She prayed, then took action. She started a detailed log, noting every insult, every trespass. Quietly, she installed small cameras, capturing everything. The pool became a stage for their mockery. The neighbor and her friends treated it like a public pool, jumping fences, playing loud music, filming themselves for social media. Josephine said nothing. She watched, recorded, and prayed. "She's too old for all this space." The neighbor sneered in one video, unaware of the hidden camera. "It should belong to people who appreciate it, like us." But behind Josephine's calm was fierce resilience. Her life, her legacy, her dignity would not be stolen. One Sunday, the blonde neighbor pounded on Josephine's door, angry about a sidewalk she claimed was poorly swept. Josephine calmly offered help, but the neighbor spat insults masked as complaints. That afternoon, Josephine heard the dreaded sound of her side gate being forced open. 5 young people, friends of the neighbor, jumped in, laughing, diving into the pool, holding champagne bottles, filming. Josephine watched from inside, tears welling but silent. The next day, she went to the county clerk's office with her evidence. Videos, notes, recordings. The young clerk was shocked. "Mrs. Howard, this is criminal. Trespassing, harassment, racial prejudice. We'll help you." Then came the day that stunned everyone. On a loud Saturday afternoon, as the neighbor hosted a rowdy pool party, a helicopter appeared, circling above Willow Creek. It landed on the concrete pad Josephine and Julius had once planned for emergencies. Out stepped a tall man in a dark suit, gray-streaked hair, carrying an air of authority. He walked straight to Josephine's gate. The neighbor froze. Guests whispered and took photos. "Who was this man?" Josephine smiled warmly. "Welcome, brother." The man embraced her, Dr. Arnaldo Nogueira, a nationally respected constitutional law scholar, human rights advocate, and Supreme Court consultant. "Josephine, my sister," he said firmly, "tell me who dared to make you cry." The blonde neighbor turned pale, trembling. For weeks, she had mocked and harassed Josephine. Now, one of the country's most influential figures had arrived at the doorstep. That weekend, Josephine's story broke in the news. The humiliations, the harassment, the trespassing, all laid bare. The wheels of justice began turning, slowly but surely. Yet Josephine's journey was far from over. The quiet strength behind her eyes hinted at battles still to come, secrets yet to be revealed, and a justice that would stretch far beyond Willow Creek's fences. The morning after Dr. Nogueira's arrival, the neighborhood felt different. Neighbors whispered, peeked through their blinds, and some even crossed the street, hoping to glean information from the few staff members at Josephine's house. But she remained silent, as always. Her strength lay in her quiet dignity, which now, with her brother by her side, carried the weight of a pending judgment. 2 days later, a legal notification arrived at the neighbor's door. The woman, accustomed to ordering around caterers, boutique owners, and domestic workers, was stunned. The notification demanded her presence at a conciliation hearing for trespassing, racism, emotional distress, and repeated harassment. She scoffed, dismissing it to her husband with a mocking laugh. She probably just wanted compensation to buy a new pool float. What she didn't know was that the lawsuit was being handled by one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, at the direct request of Dr. Nogueira. The evidence was irrefutable. Video footage of the invasions, offensive audio recordings, printouts of the racially charged notes, and testimonies from other neighbors who, emboldened by Josephine's courage, came forward to report similar intimidation. The neighbor attempted to defend herself, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that she never intended to offend anyone. But her facade crumbled when a video was played on a large screen during the hearing. In it, the woman, visibly intoxicated, sat by Josephine's pool, sneering, "That old black woman should be grateful to have pretty people using her pool. This is wasted luxury." Silence fell over the courtroom, broken only by the audible gasps of disgust. The judge leaned back in her chair with a sigh of clear indignation. The verdict was swift. The woman was ordered to pay significant compensation for emotional distress, issue a public apology, and was prohibited from approaching Josephine's residence under penalty of a hefty daily fine. The apology was mandated to be a video posted on social media under judicial supervision. But the impact extended far beyond the legal realm. Josephine's story reached the press. The following Sunday, a news crew appeared at her door. An elegant journalist with a soothing voice requested an interview. Josephine hesitated, but Dr. Nogueira encouraged her. "America needs to hear your voice, not to exploit you, but to find inspiration." And so, she shared her story on national television. Seated by her pool, wearing the blue dress her late husband had loved, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, she said, "We spend our whole lives striving for a little peace. When that peace is invaded by prejudice, it cuts like a knife. But God sees everything, and I am proof that silence also speaks, and sometimes it screams." The video went viral, garnering millions of views in a matter of days. Celebrities commented, and anti-racist movements rallied in solidarity. Josephine became a symbol of resilience and dignity. Meanwhile, the racist neighbor became the target of online protests. Internet users flooded her social media profiles with denunciations. The catering companies she owned lost contracts, and several boutiques removed her name from their list of preferred clients. Her vanity was replaced by shame. A month later, the scene that sealed the story unfolded on a cloudy Saturday. The same helicopter that had brought Josephine's brother returned, but this time, it wasn't just a visit. Dr. Nogueira had organized a small event to celebrate the redress, something symbolic yet powerful. He invited lawyers, journalists, activists, and religious leaders. A simple banner hung discreetly at the entrance of Josephine's property. "This pool is a symbol of struggle. Here, justice took a dive." Josephine sat in her wicker chair, as always, but now surrounded by people who admired her, People who had traveled from afar to embrace her, to thank her, to say, "We stand with you." During the event, the racist neighbor drove by slowly, her eyes wide as she took in the photographers, the crowd, the woman she had tried to demean being honored. She tried to speed away, to hide her face, but one of the cameras captured her fleeting expression. In the news report the next day, the contrast was stark. On one side, the elderly black woman with a magnanimous spirit. On the other, the arrogant white woman, now silent and defeated. At the end of the celebration, Josephine rose, walked to the edge of her pool, and said in a steady voice, "This pool was built with love, not to humiliate, not to show off, but because every human being deserves dignity, even if they are black, even if they are old, even if they live in a neighborhood with people who think they are better." She concluded, "Justice didn't come with shouts. It came with faith, patience, and proof. And it came from above, from the sky, in a helicopter." Everyone chuckled with respect. Some wept, others simply applauded. From that day forward, Josephine swam in her pool every morning, not out of necessity, but as a celebration. It was her ritual of victory. The racist neighbor moved away a few months later, quietly. Her name became a symbol of what not to be, and Josephine became an example of what we must never cease to be: dignified, even when others try to humiliate us. This story shows that the silence of a wise woman can be more powerful than the screams of an arrogant racist. Josephine taught us that dignity cannot be bought, and that justice, when it arrives, silences even the most insolent.